And welcome to Ninjahatchet's Garbage Guides again. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do Arraxor. If you're doing it for the first time, or if you're not sure exactly what you're doing, I'm going to be doing it in completely garbage gear on my Iron Man, just to show you guys that it is possible and how you can do it even with very low tier gear. So I'm wearing full War Priest right now, which is really crappy armor. It's tier 75 hybrid armor. Wearing a Dragon Rider Ami, a Asylum Surgeon's Ring. I'm going to be using an attuned crystal bow, which is pretty much the equivalent of a Royal Crossbow, but because my Royal Crossbow is degraded on my Iron Man, I'm not going to be using that. I will be using the Master Sharpshooter aura. Anytime that you do Arraxor, the best aura you can use is an accuracy aura, so whether you're using mage or range, try to get the corresponding accuracy aura, because your biggest problem at Arraxor is going to be actually hitting Arraxor. So any accuracy boost that you have that you can use is going to help a lot. Obviously, when you make this switch up to tier 90 weapons, that's not nearly as much of a problem, but anything you can do to boost your accuracy, so even like a Reaper necklace or something like that will help you out a lot. So that's my equipment inventory there. Going over to my inventory, I'm using very basic stuff, anything that you should be able to get going into this fight. So just a basic overload here, a prayer renewal, a couple of super restore flasks, and an adrenaline pot. One thing that I forgot is a super anti-poison, and I always forget something. That's why these are garbage guides. And pretty much the rest of my inventory is sharks. On my secondary action bar, I do have my prayer switches. You can see I have those set to A and S on my keyboard. That way when I get into P4 and I actually do need to prayer switch, I can just tap in between those two. My revolution bar is pretty basically set up, just a couple of basic abilities here. Obviously, if you don't have corruption shot or the Tuska's Wrath, just replace it with something more basic, like a binding shot or something like that. You'll be fine. I also run Death Swiftness and Surge on my bar. Surge is great for getting away from the one-hit KO spiders, so I like having that on my bar. And then Freedom, Anticipation, and Food. So Freedom and Anticipation are going to be your two most useful abilities here at Arraxor. So if you've never done Arraxor, let's talk a little bit about Arraxor's attacks. So Arraxor has his basic attacks and he has his special attacks. And what he does is every 5 attacks, every 5 basic attacks that he does, he'll do a special attack. And the way to protect yourself from the special attacks is either having a anticipation or having a freedom activated during that time. So when we first jump down here and we start the fight, he will have 3 special attacks that he can do. He can either do what is called the swipe, which is where he pulls your character in towards him. He swipes his arms across. It'll deal quite a bit of damage, anywhere from 3 to 10k damage, and that's it. If you have anticipation or freedom active during the time, though, he will not pull your character in, and as long as you're not within melee distance of him, he cannot hit you. So there's 2 options there. You either have to have one of these 2 abilities ready and use during that time, or when he pulls you in, you have to immediately spam click away from him in order to not get swiped. The second special ability that he has is Cocoon. So he will wrap your character up in a spider web or a cocoon, and basically what you need to do is just spam click away from the cocoon in order to get out of it. Now, where Freedom Anticipation come into play here is if you do not have one of these 2 abilities active, you will be trapped in the cocoon for at least 5 ticks, and it will do approximately 200 to 400 damage each tick. If you do have them active, you will only be trapped for 2 ticks, so it does definitely help. And the third ability that Arraxor has is the spider web, where he webs himself. During this, any damage you do to Arraxor is actually reflected back onto you, so it is a very easy way to accidentally kill yourself. Freedom and Anticipation does not do anything for this, but it's a good idea just to get a good rotation of Freedom and Anticipation down when you're fighting, just because you don't know what special attack is coming. So once you move on from the first phase, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get down here, and you're going to want to DPS Arraxor down to about 5k health. And once you're at 5k health, you're going to move on. So what I like to do is I jump down, I immediately anticipate and get that rotation going, and then I will just build up to 100% adrenaline, and I will Death Swiftness and try to fire off my snapshot and rapid fire and that kind of stuff. And just DPS them down to about 5k. Once you're at 5k, you're going to go ahead and move on through the web that you burn. On this video, I'm going to be going down Path 2. Path 3 is definitely the easiest to do, but if you need a Path 3 guide, go ahead and check out my other video on my Path 3 guide. We will be doing a Path 2 for this video. So once we get into Path 2, I'm just going to quickly talk about all this stuff before we actually do it. When we get into Path 2, he's going to add he's going to add 2 more special attacks. One of them is going to be egg spawn, and when that happens, he's going to drop down 3 eggs, and he'll send a bomb after you. The bomb takes a little while to get to you, and you need to be standing on top of those 3 eggs when the bomb hits you. If you're not standing on top of them, you will be hit for a 3k, and if you are standing on top of them, it will blow up the eggs, and you will only be hit for 300. If you do not blow up the eggs, some spider minions will come out of them, and you'll have to deal with those while you're still killing Arraxor. The other ability that the other special ability that he adds is the one-hit KO spider, and we will see that when I get into Path 2. But basically, what he does, he spits out an attack, and it will create a small green pool on the ground. And from that green pool, an acid spider will spawn and start making his way towards you. He will have a timer above his head. If he gets to you before that timer reaches 0, then you will be KO'd in one hit. It does like 30k damage or something like that. So it's ultimate priority that you get away from that little green blob on the ground, and we'll take a look at that when we get there. So once we move on from Path 2, we go on to Phase 3. In Phase 3, he adds 1 more special attack with all of his other ones that we've already talked about, and that is that he will darken the arena and put 1 little spot of light somewhere in the arena. If you're not standing in the light, you'll take some constant damage. When I do this at low enrages, I don't even bother going for the light, but if you want to save some food, you can feel free to go to it, and I'll show you that later on in the video. And the last thing that he does during Path 3, or Phase 3, is he will spawn 4 acid spiders. Now, these are not one-hit KO spiders. He still can spawn one-hit KO spiders, but these are acid spiders. And what the idea here is you want to DPS Arraxor down to about 10k or so health, and then you want to lure all these acid spiders, and you'll see you're going to click on the acid spider, it will lure it, and you want to lure it underneath Arraxor so that he absorbs the spider. And the idea is that you want to have him absorb all 4 spiders before moving on to Phase 4. If you do not do this, then during Phase 4 he will absorb the acid, and it will make Phase 4 a much harder fight. And I'll show you that as we get there. Talking about Phase 4, so Phase 4 is where most people die. Everybody can get to Phase 4, but Phase 4 is where most people struggle. So real quickly, we're going to talk about that. During Phase 4, you need to pray switch. So that's why you see that I have my 2 protection prayers. I have those on a secondary action bar, and I have it so that I can switch between the 2 by pushing A and S. So whatever you're praying against is the opposite of what he's going to attack. So if I'm praying mage here, he's going to send range attacks after me. And then right before the range attacks hit me, I need to switch to my range prayer and then let the 2 range attacks hit me, and by that time he will start sending out a magic spell, and I need to switch back to my magic. So the magic spells look green, and the range attacks look gray. So you just need to get a good rotation down, and if you're sitting in the correct spot, which is kind of medium length away from Arraxor, he should be sending 2 attacks of one style and then 2 attacks of another style, and you should be able to get a pretty good prayer switching rotation down. One of the things that screws a lot of people up on Phase 4 is they forget to do their freedom and anticipation rotation. So once again, every 5 attacks or so, he will do one of his special moves. He can cleave you, he can web you, he can do that kind of stuff. So you want to have your freedom and anticipate going every 5 attacks, and we'll look at that when we get to that point. When you reach 50k health, when Arraxor is down to 50k health, he will stop doing special attacks at this point. So you no longer have to worry about doing your freedom and in your anticipation. You just have to worry about prey switching. So the fight actually gets a lot easier after 50k health. When he gets down to 25k health, however, he spits out a little pool of acid, and what happens is that acid will bounce around for about 7 ticks. So like you'll be attacking Arraxor and you'll be prey switching, and this acid will start bouncing around you. Once the acid bounces close to you, the next time it bounces, it's going to be going onto you. When it hits you, it's going to do some typeless damage for quite a bit of health. It's going to do like between 2 or 3k damage, and what you need to do is you need to just walk 1 square away from it and re-attack Arraxor. The acid will then bounce around again like 7 or 8 times before coming back to you. So the idea here is that you have to let that acid hit you. You have to let it touch you at least once, or it's just going to constantly follow you around the arena if you try to run away from it. So just try to be ready for that. During that time, I really suggest that you spam eat quite a bit just to try to keep your health up, just because you're only trying to survive during this. Another thing I forgot to touch on, if this is your first time going, feel free to bring quite a few brews. Brews are obviously going to heal you a lot more than the sharks will. I'm going to be doing this guide with just sharks just to show you that it is possible, but a lot of people like to bring brews because it will give you a lot more food. So that's phase 4. The adrenaline potion is for phase 4. You can use it before then, but the idea is that when you get him down to 25k health, he will drain all your adrenaline, so you want to hit an adren pot and try to build back up to a snapshot or a rapid fire to try to KO him as quickly as possible in that last 25k. Another thing a lot of people like to do on their first try is bring a sign of life. And I do suggest that once you feel pretty comfortable, like you think you might get the kill, bring a sign of life, because that could mean the difference between actually getting it or failing your first kill. So like I said, we're going to be doing this in pretty low tier gear, just to show you that it is possible and that anybody can do it. Arraxor is just a mechanics boss. Honestly, if you can understand the mechanics of how it works, anybody can do Arraxor. So I'm going to go ahead and start an instance here. I will talk through the kill as we do this, just to kind of help you guys out and give you a step-by-step guide to what I'm doing. Also, if you start an instance, you're guaranteed that Arraxor will spawn weak to whatever style you're using. So I'm using range, so if I start an instance, it's guaranteed that Arraxor will be using mage, which is what I want. If you just jump in and you don't have an Arraxite pheromone, it's not guaranteed. So you may end up trying to range against a melee Arraxor, and that is not suggested at all because it makes the fight much, much more difficult. So a couple things I'm going to talk about real quick. When I first jump in here, the fight is going to start. I'm going to immediately run over to the web that I want to burn. Right now, Path 2 and Path 3 are open. This is what I suggest for when you first start out. These are the easiest paths to go down, and we are going to be doing Path 2 today. So when I jump down here, the first thing I'm going to do is run over to the web, click on burn, and it's not going to let me burn it until Arraxor jumps down, so we'll do that. As soon as he does come down, I will burn the web, immediately hit my overload, hit my quick prayers, and hit a anticipation, because the first attacks that he does, we never know when the special attack is coming. It's not going to be on his 5th attack. It might be his first. It might be his 2nd attack. We don't know. After the first special attack happens, then we know when the next one will be coming, so we can get our nice rotation down. So I'm going to go ahead and activate my aura here and jump down, and we will do this. Also, my quick prayers are set to protect from mage and my tier 95 prayer because he will be attacking with mage. So the first thing we want to do is when he comes down is burn the web. I'm going to run out in front of him, overload up, hit my protection prayers, and I want to anticipate as quickly as possible. So there I anticipated. We have 2 attacks coming, 3 attacks. And there was his special move. He cleaves. Because I was anticipated, he did not pull me in. So now we have 1 attack, 2 attacks, 3 attacks, 4 attacks. I'm going to freedom. After his 5th attack, now he's going to be doing another special move. And this is where he does his spider web. I choose to not attack him during this. He'll heal 5k, but if I do attack him, any damage that I do is going to be reflected back to me. So there's 1 attack again, 2 attacks, 3 attacks, 4 attacks, and I'm going to anticipate. So after this, he will do another special attack, and there you see he did his cocoon. I'm going to spam click out of it because I was anticipated. He only did 2 ticks of damage to me. So we're going to go ahead and get a Death Swiftness going here. And he did a special attack, and so I'm just going to stay off of him and do some stuff to build some adrenaline here. So when you're first starting out, I highly recommend counting the attacks. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go ahead and Freedom, and 5. And he does his cocoon. I spam click out of it and continue with the rapid fire. Also, when you're first starting, you can use Devotion and Debilitate to save some food. It does definitely help. So now that you guys have seen the Anticipation and Freedom rotation, now we're just going to focus on doing a little more DPS. I'll throw in a Devotion here. But we're going to work on DPSing him down. Remember, we want to get him down to about 5k health. I'm going to go ahead and Freedom because he's about to do a special attack. And I stayed away from that cleave. Remember, if you don't Freedom in time, or if you don't anticipate and he does cleave, just spam click away from him and you will be able to get out of the cleave fairly easily. So go ahead and anticipate because it's been a little bit. He should be doing a special attack right now. Alright, we're going to go ahead and try to build some adrenaline. Get off a snapshot and a rapid fire while we're in Death Swiftness. I do not suggest letting your health get this low. I do it just because I'm fairly comfortable. You see I anticipated there again so that I will be able to get out of that cocoon fairly quickly. Alright, so he's down to about 10k health. I'm going to go ahead and throw off a snapshot and move on. So now he's at less than 5k. See, as you see, he pulled me in there, but because I'm spam clicking away, he actually did not hit me with that cleave. So moving on to path 2, I like to stand right here. The idea here is that you want Arraxor in the acid here. You can see there's a bar here, acidity level. You want that to get all the way up to halfway before you move on. Here we go. I just freed him because he's got a special attack coming soon. And it's a web. So like I said, the idea is that you want his acid level to build all the way up to about 50%, and then you're going to move up to the top of the arena. And during this time, we just want to DPS him as much as possible. I usually throw off a Death Swiftness right here, but for the purposes of this guide, I'm just going to go ahead and keep attacking. Alright, so I don't have a Freedom or Anticipate available. You can see he pulled me in for a cleave there, and all I did was clicked away from him to get out of it. And we're going to go ahead and anticipate. And he webbed. So right now he's at about 50% here on his acid bar. Once he's at 50%, you can go ahead and drag him up to the top of the ramp here in order to start degrading the ramp. But because I got him at still fairly high health, I'm going to stay down here for a little bit and just do some DPS to get him to a lower health. If I move on too quickly, then what's going to happen is that during phase 3, the spiders will just heal him up. So there you see he dropped the eggs. I want to stand on top of those eggs before that bomb hits me, and you can see that it just hit me for a 300. If I wasn't on top of those eggs, it would have hit me for a 3,000. So we're going to do a little more DPS here and Freedom because he's got another special attack coming. And there was his one-hit KO spider. So you see that acid pool that spawned next to me? I want to get away from that as fast as I can. And this is actually kind of ideal because now we can go up here to where he's going to start degrading the path. So basically what happens is you have to keep him up here and let his acid drain out onto here to degrade this path. I'm going to go ahead and anticipate because I have another special attack coming. And it's the acid, or it's the spiders here. So I want to stand on top of those eggs, let it hit me. It hit me for 1,200 only because there was 2 eggs there instead of 3. So we're just going to sit up here and continue to let him degrade this path. Once this acid goes almost all the way down, these rocks will disappear, and there we go. We can go ahead and jump down to the next level. So this is the start of phase 3. You can see he just spawned a highly acidic spider. This is the ones that I have to lure onto him before the end of this fight. And I'm not going to do that until I get Arraxor down to about 5k health. Once again, you can see he pulled me in for a cleave there. I just spam clicked away from him and was able to get out of it fairly quickly. So he's going to spawn 4 of these spiders throughout the fight. They don't do anything. You can just kind of avoid them until the end of the fight here. So we're just going to go through and do some DPS. We'll pull some food out of the yak. And get a Death Swiftness going to get some good DPS. His attacks do come a little bit faster during P3, so you can see that's 2 attacks, 3 attacks. They are coming a little bit faster, 4, so I'm going to go ahead and freed him because he has another special attack coming. So there's a cocoon. I just click out of that and re-attack him. Also, guys, when he summons an acid spider, I did not have a Freedom or Anticipate available, so you can see that time I got hit for 5 ticks instead of 2. But because when he does spawn one of these acidic spiders, it counts as a special move. So if you did a Freedom or Anticipate and nothing happens, and you see that thing come up, that takes the place of one of his special moves. So just if you're trying to keep on your Freedom Anticipation rotation, that's why you don't get a special move. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and Freedom because he's got another coming. So this is the darkness. It does hit you very, very lightly. A lot of times I will just ignore it. But for the purpose of this guide, I'll show that as long as you stand in the light, you will not be taking the high amounts of damage there. So we're going to go ahead and Anticipate, and he ended up doing his web attack. So we're just going to build some adrenaline and fire off another Death Swiftness. Three attacks, 4 attacks, 5 attacks. I'm going to Freedom and spam click out of this cocoon stuff. Oh, that's a misclick. And he dropped his little things down, so I just want to stand on top of those eggs. It does take a little while for that bomb to hit you, so you got some time. But just try to get to those eggs before the bomb gets to you. Like I said, once again, he pulled me in for a cleave because I didn't have a Freedom or Anticipation up. So I just spam click away from him in order to get out of that. We're going to go ahead and Freedom because he's got another attack coming. And that was an acid spider. So looking at that attack, it's a range attack, and he puts that little pool on the ground. I want to do everything that I can to get away from it. And that little timer above his head, once that thing expires, he dies, and now I'm good to go. So we're going to go stand in the darkness while I explain a couple of things. So the acid spiders that spawn, normally if you go down path 3, he'll spawn 4 acid spiders. Because we went down path 2, he will only spawn 1 or 2. I'm going to go ahead and use a devotion while I come over here and grab this spider. So now that because he's less than 5k, we want to lure this acid spider underneath Arraxor. So basically what you want to do is just run around him until that spider gets absorbed. So like you see, he just took 5k damage there. We're going to avoid this acid spider over here. And now we just have to DPS him out to move on to phase 4. Phase 4 is the most difficult, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. So the very first thing that I want to do is I want to stop my adrenaline loss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click down a little bit and hit an escape. That's going to stop my adrenaline from going down. I'm going to re-overload, re-prayer, get my prayer up, and then you can actually heal up to full during this point if you want to. Because this is where the harder part of this fight comes. So immediately Anticipate, and you see that gray attack. I want to switch to range because that's a range attack. Now I switch back to magic because that's a magic, and because I anticipated, he did not pull me in. Here comes another range attack, so I'm going to switch to range. I am poisoned because I forgot to bring anti-poison, but if you have an anti-poison, make sure you drink that before this starts. And here's a range attack. We're going to go ahead and Freedom. It didn't matter because the light's there. I'm going to go ahead and avoid the light just because it doesn't do that much damage, and I'd rather keep my position. You do have to continue to prayer switch, so you see there's range and there's mage. Switching to mage. And there's range again. We're going to go ahead and Anticipate so we don't get a special attack, and devotion to try to save some food here. He pulled me in. I'm just going to click away from him. He's at 59k health. Once again, once we get him lower than 50k, you'll see that Arraxor starts to get enraged. He no longer does his special attack. So the only thing you have to worry about at this point is his prayer switching. So I'm going to fire off a debilitate here to try to slow down some of this damage. And now at this point, we're just going to get him down to 25k health. When he hits 25k health, I am going to go ahead and hit my adrenaline potion, continue to prayer switch during this time, and now I'm just going to fire off a snapshot and a rapid fire just to try to DPS him down. When that acid gets close to me, now it's about to hit me, I want to let it hit me once and move. And then continue to prayer switch. As long as you let it hit you once, it'll just continue to bounce around like that, give you some more time to attack Arraxor. And with Revolution going and using that snapshot and rapid fire, it does knock him out pretty quickly under 25k health. So as you can see, even with no bruise and doing this guide and doing a very terrible job at killing Arraxor, I was able to do it with only Sharks and War Priest and my attuned bow here. Anything that you can do to help make your fight a little bit easier is great. So if you have better gear or a better weapon or something like that, you can use this guide just as simply as a way to learn Arraxor's mechanics. So as a quick recap, he does a couple of special moves during P1. You want to work on getting that Freedom and Anticipation rotation down. So every 5 attacks, you want to use either Freedom or Anticipate. When you move on to Path 2, or Phase 2, you can either go down Path 2 or 3. If you watch my other guide on how to do Path 3, I do think Path 3 is easier and saves you more food. So if you're struggling getting through the kill, definitely do a Path 3 kill. It's much, much easier. But this was a Path 2 guide. So Path 2, he adds in the one-hit KO spiders. Make sure you're watching for those, and the eggs that spawn. Make sure you're watching for those eggs as well. Moving into Phase 3, once you get to Phase 3, once you let him drain all his acid onto that little ramp there, going into Phase 3, he adds the little darkness ability and the acid spiders that he spawns. You want to lure those acid spiders onto him before the fight ends, and if you want to stand in the light to save some food, you can. Otherwise, as you see, I just ignored it there. It doesn't do that much damage. Going into Phase 4, remember the biggest thing is just to stay calm during Phase 4. Everybody tends to overreact during it, and what really is going to kill you is when you miss your prayer switches. So above all, prioritize making sure that you have the correct protection prayers up. It's nice to get in that rotation of 2 attacks, 2 attacks. So 2 mage, and then 2 range, and then 2 mage, and then 2 range. And then you do have to have your Freedom and Anticipation going during that first 50k of health. And if you don't, it's fine, but if he pulls you in for a cleave, make sure you spam click away. I always like to keep Arraxor on the left side of my screen and keep my mouse on the right side of the screen. That way, if he does pull me in, all I have to do is spam click away to get out of it. And then remember, once he gets down to 50k health, you no longer have to worry about the Freedom and Anticipation. You only have to worry about prayer switching. Continue to DPS him down to about 25k health. Once he gets to 25k health, he releases the acid. That's when I drink my adrenaline pot and try to fire off a couple of thresholds just to get him down. The acid will bounce around 5, 6, 7 times, something like that, and then it will go on you. Once it hits you once, walk away, and it will get off of you and start bouncing around again. Remember, you'll know when the acid hits you because it will do red typeless damage as opposed to whatever Arraxor is doing. And it will always jump right next to you before it jumps on top of you. So you can kind of get an idea of when it's actually going to hit you. So yeah, that's my Arraxor guide for noobs. If you have any questions, PM me in-game. My RSN is Ninjahatchet, or I'm on my Iron Man quite often, and that is the Chat Ninja. So hopefully this helps you guys out on doing Arraxor for the first time and doing it with scrubby gear, and good luck. Let's see what I got. And Hydrix bolts.